But if all that you're focused on is that one technical skill, then you are pretty much a replaceable commodity. And so these three trends of ownership and agency, careers morphing, and your ability to be a polymath are feeding into the shift in the career tree as we are seeing it.
We have the pleasure of welcoming Tanvi Gautam today to our interview series. I'm Sumita Mariam from the peopleHum team. Before we begin, just a quick introduction of peopleHum. peopleHum is an end-to-end, one-view integrated human capital management automation platform, the winner of the 2019 Global Cody Award for HCM that is specifically built for crafted employee experiences and the future of work. On the peopleHum blog and video channel, which receives upwards of 200,000 visitors a year, and publish around 2 interviews with well-known names globally every month. And now for our guest, Dr. Tanvi Gautam is the founder of Leadership Inc. She's a program director at the Singapore Management University. She's a certified business storytelling coach who works with leaders across the globe, helping them raise their potential as impactful, authentic, engaged, and inclusive leaders. She was one of the top 25 HR influencers on social media by SHRM for 5 years in a row. We are very happy and honored to have someone of her stature on our interview series today. Welcome, Tanvi. We're thrilled to have you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting
It's absolutely our pleasure. So, going right into the interview, Tanvi, first question I have for you. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey that brought you to the Leadership Inc.?
Well, it has been an interesting journey. I don't think many people know what the journey has been, so I'll share it in short. I was not supposed to be here. This is not what I had thought would be my first career. I actually always wanted to be an F-16 combat fighter pilot.
Wow.
But the Air Force wasn't taking women at that time, so that career didn't happen. And then after my post-graduation in Australia, I decided to go to the corporate world, and I started working at Tata Consultancy Services at the headquarters, and I was involved in some very strategic projects and human capital. And that was my first brush with HR, so to speak. And I really enjoyed it. I went to work for a Big Four consulting firm. I enjoyed it too, but I was quite restless because how many recruitment cycles can you do? How many performance appraisal cycles can you do? And I wanted to go a little bit deeper, so I left to do my PhD in the US. After which I thought I was going to be in academia, but that wasn't to be either, because there was, the economy was in a bad shape when I graduated, and we also moved countries, and a whole bunch of things happened. So now you see, we've gone from being a fighter pilot, that's not happening. Academia, well, that doesn't, corporate and academia, and now it's the third, round, if I might say. I think the current career that I have is the best of all the worlds. So I work with the corporate sector. I still teach at the business school, but I also do a lot of keynote speaking and executive coaching. So it's the best of all worlds. I think the only thing that's common to my journey has been this to constantly keep focusing on what are those elements of leadership or people development that we have not thought through adequately about that can help catapult the organization or the leaders into their next version. And so that's kind of like the red thread that runs through my career, whether that is in the corporate world or in academia or now in my own consulting practice.
So, Tanvi, moving on to our next question, can you elaborate a little bit about, being a business story coach? I mean, how do you work on that? What is it all about?
So I think that one of the most important skills leaders need to have in the world of disruption is focused on storytelling. And the reason is that we are asking our people to move through a series of changes and transformations. And we are not quite sure where we are going to get at the end of it. Which means that leaders have to be able to tell the story of where we have been, where we are, how are we going to get there, and what might be a possible future. Now, people tend to think that if we use charts and graphs and statistics and ROI and other calculations that people will come along for the ride. It doesn't really work like that. People are much more driven by things that they feel personally and emotionally connected to. And that's where storytelling comes in, because storytelling is the one tool that can connect with people not just at a left brain level, but also a right brain level. And so when I work with using storytelling, it can be used for a variety of things. Most important at the moment being, change management. But you could use storytelling for coaching. You could do it for recruitment. I work with a lot of organizations on what is the story of your employer brand, for example, right? You could use it for performance appraisal. What's the story of a person's journey through your organization and the skills that they need to acquire? And it can be used in sales and marketing, which is a lot of the work that I do with leaders as well. So I tell people that storytelling is like learning to use a box of crayons. Once you've learned to use the crayons, you can paint anything you want. But you have to first learn the skill. And a lot of people think they're doing storytelling, but actually they're not, because it's an art as well as a science. And it requires you to look at it from both these perspectives to help connect in a way that actually makes them want to get up and get behind whatever initiative that you're doing right now.
That is very, very interesting. I mean, being able to do it by example is a fantastic thing. So, what is fundamentally different about careers in the age of disruption from any other time?
Yeah, so I think that careers have changed dramatically. So in January of 2020, I launched something known as the Careers Accelerator. And for anybody who wants to check it out, just go to www.cia.com.world, because it was a global community. So we launched this community. Little did we know when we were launching this in January, and we have got executives from every single continent in the world in this community. We did not know how relevant this conversation is going to become in what we were literally getting into, even as we were launching, right? And the reason why I launched this community is because careers today are fundamentally different than what careers have been in the past. For one, you need to exercise a lot more an agency your own around your careers. This of waiting for HR or your boss or someone else to come and develop your career, those days are gone.
Yeah.
You really have to think about your own, and you need to be taking steps to make sure I kind of tell people you have to think of your own self as the entrepreneur or the CEO of your own career. Most people don't think like that. It's amazing how they hand over their keys to somebody else. And that somebody else is not going to be looking at your career the way you are looking at it, doesn't understand your needs the way you understand it, right? So that's one. The second thing is that you'll notice that careers will morph. I know Morgan Stanley bakers who have become, they have launched bakeries and cupcake shops, and then they have left that, and then they're looking at executive coaching. So this business of, one career, one lifetime, that's gone. People will go through multiple iterations of their own careers. They will, of course, take skills from the past into the future. But fundamentally, you might work in an area or in a job that's very, very different. So that's the second thing. The third thing is that the careers of the future will require you to be is known as a polymath, or another term that people use for it is a Renaissance individual, which means that, okay, so you understand machine learning, which is great, but is machine learning all that you understand? Because if you don't have a wide enough horizon of understanding connects with the imperatives of, say, healthcare, or connects with the imperative of, say, economies in transition, you will never take that skill and apply it in a way that leads to the maximum impact. Of course, you'll have an impact, but if all that you're focused on is that one technical skill, then you are pretty much a replaceable commodity. And so these three trends of ownership and agency, careers morphing, and your ability to be a polymath are feeding into the shift in the career tree as we are seeing it.
That's a very interesting answer, and that makes a lot of sense. Taking ownership of yourself. And I think that is the first step that all executives of today have to take, because you never know what you're going to be interested in the next month or something like that.
In the past, the thing was, oh, why are you interested in being an executive coach? Become an engineer and stick with it. That will give you, the salary and the safety net. But you know what? There is no safety net anymore. We are moving through one such storm.
Yeah.
There is no safety net anymore. And what happens when you don't honor your own need for change, honor your desires for what your career should look like, you tend to become depressed, you tend to burn out, you tend to not bring your best self to your career. When you don't bring your best self to your career, you don't progress at the rate which you could. When you don't progress at the rate which you could, you become stagnant, and then next thing you know, you're looking at low performance and layoffs. So it's a vicious cycle, and there's only one person who can help you break out of it, and that's you yourself. So even thinking about my career as my responsibility and I need to make a change is a new paradigm. Most people don't think about their careers like that till they get laid off, and then they're like, what happened?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that answer is something that, our audience would really need during this time. So thank you so much for that. And also, when we talk about leaders, how has the role of leaders?
Yeah.
And what do you think the essential qualities one leader should have, to succeed in the future? What are the qualities that they should possess?
Hours do you have? Because I can talk about this for 3 days. I think it's a topic that is so close to my heart. So here's how I define the role of a leader. Okay, the role of a leader is to expand the range of possibility and potential for everything and everyone they come in contact with. That is the fundamental role of the leader. That has always been the role of the leader. That will always be the role of the leader. Things like set direction, create trust, take care of your people, be strategic. These are a set of tasks, competencies that feed into that focus of expanding the range of possibility and potential, right? Now, you are leading through different times. You could be talking about how you led pre-disruption, how you're leading in disruption, how you're leading post-disruption. If you keep focused on how am I expanding the range of around me, you will always get it right. Trouble is, you can't do that for others till you do it for yourself.
Yeah.
So using storytelling, that's what I like to do, right? So if your leader has a bucket which holds 5 liters of water, and I pour 10, the 5 liters will go to waste, right? It doesn't matter that I'm pouring 10 liters in it, your cup does not go beyond 5.
Yeah.
Therefore, if the leader herself or himself doesn't expand their capacity, they're not going to expand the capacity of others. So, it's a very famous saying, and I get very, what should I say? On a good day, I laugh, and on a bad day, I get frustrated. People say, oh, everybody in our company is a leader. And I'm like, no, everybody in your company is not a leader. What you're trying to say is everybody in your company has the potential to lead, provided you are investing in your people. And I don't see that happening board. So these blanket statements of everybody is a leader really don't translate if you are not investing in capacity building of the people. So in short, the role of the leader has always been the same. It depends on what is needed at the moment to expand the potential of the people in front of me.
That's wonderful. I mean, I just love the way you give examples and explain it, because it just makes a lot of sense, and it's so easy to understand the concepts that, otherwise if we read a book, we would be like, we have to read it another time to understand. So that is really good. And, what is your opinion on the all-inclusive term, the future of work? How do you, how do you see it evolving?
Anybody who follows my work by now knows that I have absolutely no problem taking contrarian views on things. I absolutely dislike this word, the future of work. Okay. I think it has become overused. It has become a catchphrase for everything and anything. And the problem with that is that when you create an umbrella term like future of work, which everybody can latch onto their own way, you are not focused on what exactly it is that you need to be taking care of. It's like digital transformation. There are 100 different ways people think about digital transformation. It's too broad a term. What is really needed, I feel, is a certain level of granularity when we talk about the future of work. I don't think that there is one single future. I think there is a very different future. You have to think about how the work process and the skill set in different industries needs to be approached, in different sectors, in different countries, in different demographics. Now we are looking at analytics, which are examining the level of vulnerability based on postcode, right? If I put in a certain zip code, what do I find out about the population in that area in terms of their readiness for what is next? So I think we are not doing ourselves any favors by just tossing this word around, future of work, without bringing it down to something concrete that somebody can actually make something of. We have been excessively focused on technology as a tool that will shape our future, but we also have reskilling and redeployment. We also have to think about how are the ecosystems of work in the future going to come together. Is there going to be more collaboration between big businesses and SMEs and the gig workers? How are they going to be coming together? How can we reimagine jobs? A lot of organizations in quoting themselves, well, do we really need these jobs? Some of them which are happening even without people coming in. So much as I dislike that term, I do think the potential for discussion is very, very ripe, provided we can put some stakes in the ground and talk about specifics versus generalities where everything is about the future of work.
Yeah, that's a great, and I think that's a really fresh perspective for me personally. So I really like it. And you know, talking about digital transformation, what do you think is the role that digital transformation will play while establishing the right employee experience? And as we look at the extended work from home scenario, how do you think this is going to work out?
So I have been working with a lot of companies on the people side of digital transformation, including using storytelling for digital transformation. And I always tell them one thing. Um, any firm, no matter how advanced their digital architecture is, will never outperform the human architecture. Mm-hmm. And so when we are talking about digital transformation, it's the same thing. We've been focused on digital, but not enough on transformation. Yeah. When I have taught at the university, I remember we had this big technology person. They had been through 5 days of talking digital transformation, and then just as I walked in, I was told, they get it, but they're not very sure what the people aspect has got to do with digital. I said, well, that's nice. After 4 days, now I have to still convince them of this. But you see, it comes back to what I was saying on expanding your mindset, the frames with which you look at the world. The room was full of left brain engineers who get the technologies, but their exposure to the people side of things and the human side of things has been very limited. So remember, we were talking about polymaths earlier, right? You just can't imagine how this is interconnecting with some of the other things. So digital transformation and the work from home conversation is going to be very much focused on how are you using more and more technology to build competencies in a virtual environment. So I was speaking at a conference day last week, and I did a quick poll and I asked, in terms of where is the focus right now in organizations, and organizations understandably are very, very focused on, okay, what's our strategy? How are we going to get it? But they are just not focusing on the role of the individual and the interpersonal. Training programs have been canceled, coaching has been put on hold, all hands on deck. And I get it, you need to do that to stabilize the deck. But please understand, the people who are living in this environment, in this work from home environment, are exceptionally stressed. Human resources have got to talk about these issues as well. There is news about, people may be in, toxic marriages, and, you could get away to office, you could come back. Now you're constantly with this person, who, from whom there is no getting away from. Or, you have got kids who need assistance because, they're not, we've been working with screens. Our kids have not been working with screens and technology. When we are talking about digital transformation, the digital piece is taking care of itself. Are you taking care of the transformation piece? And even in the transformation piece, it is about how can we support our people best at the moment. I somebody who was telling me that, at every meeting the request is turn on the video. Why turn on the video? IBM came up with a pledge recently, or with their employees, where they said, I will respect other people when they say, I'm not camera ready, right? And that is when you start talking about the employee experience in the digital transformation conversation, when you acknowledge that the person who's sitting at the other end of the screen is very much human and in need and holding at the moment. And I am not sure whether companies are doing nearly enough.
That is a well answer. I mean, it's so people centric, and I think a lot of organizations, a lot of corporates need to hear that right now, because a lot of employees are struggling a lot working from home, just sitting inside the four walls, and they don't have anything else to do, just sit in front of your laptop and work. And I think the support from where they work from is what they need the most right now, because they need to have that support system with them.
I think I tell people we are not working from home, we are homing from work. There is a huge difference. It's kind of like, your family has now moved into your workplace, is the feeling I kind of get, because I'm trying to keep work day and the schedule and everything together. And this morning my son announced that his music teacher has asked him to get some pans and bang them to create symphony. I'm like, kindly do this after the interview. So I have to manage that piece as well.
The struggle is real.
It is.
So that was an absolutely wonderful answer. I loved it. And let's focus a little bit to the workforce. How do you think the gig economy is going to evolve through the crisis? I mean, do you think stay given the the coming inevitable financial
it's going
crisis?
to be a real shakedown. Let's just put it that way. It's going to shake down. We are going to be separating what I call boys from men, women from girls, as to what is your staying power in the gig economy. Because I think the gig workers are definitely the most vulnerable section of the workforce at the moment. And the gig work itself is on a continuum, right? It's, again, like the future of work, it's become a catchphrase, but which gig worker are you talking about? Are you talking about the Uber drivers, which are basically commoditizing their skills when they are, renting it out to organizations? Are you talking about, freelancers and, the ones who have supported your organization in different ways, be that, teams you've hired for marketing, purposes, or teams you've hired for tech, or even executive coaches, etc. So you're in a symbiotic relationship with them, but you don't have any reason to support them in what they're going through. So I think that depending on where you are in that continuum of gig work, you are 100% feeling the pressure. Is it here to stay? I want to say yes, it is here to stay for those who are very much committed in some senses to either following their path, or those who we have not looked at how we can bring them into the more stable full-time employment. But that organizations have not done enough to think about the relationship with the gig workers, and that's something that is going to be under even more pressure as we go forward. But the upside of being in a gig economy is you're not dependent in some ways as full-time employment contracts are. So I think we'll see a shakedown, and let's see what emerges. Heard from many of the people who are in the gig economy, who are actually thinking that are to go full-time employment because the pressure has become so high. But it's not like the opportunities are available at a drop of a hat. So let's see how this shapes up. All I know is that it was always difficult to be in the gig economy. It just became even more difficult for the people who don't who have not had enough experience in disrupting themselves, in transforming themselves, in taking ownership and agency of their career. So a gig economy is not different from a career. The same principles that I shared with you are very much applicable to the gig economy workers as they're applicable to the full-time employees. The ones who are able to make that shift and transition will be the ones who will survive.
Yeah, that's so right. And I just love that, answer of, separate men from boys and women from girls. I think a lot of grit and, courage will be, they'll have to have all of that to survive in the world. And I think a lot of employees were also looking at a little bit of gig work just to improve their skills on a different, area. And I don't know, like, do you think that is going to happen even after the crisis? Because all being disrupted right now. And do you think that's, the full-time employees who are also trying to do the gig work are going to get enough
A lot of
chances?
work in the Silicon Valley. And let me tell you, when I am there, it is almost the norm that people in full-time employment are always exploring something on the side. Maybe it's just the nature of Silicon Valley, the fact that, people believe that, if they have a dream and they follow it, and, there is a possibility of something coming out of it. So I am familiar with, industries and locations where it is very much par for the course to have your main job and then be looking at a side gig. And I think what will happen is that with disruption coming in, more and more employees are going to ask, what's my fallback? If things go wrong, what am I looking at? And I think that gig work actually is a great experiment in your career and start thinking about what is your next version that is coming out. It's something I do commonly all the time. There are some projects that I'm working on right now that are not in mainstream, and I'm not going to be sharing them here, but they are my side experiments which are helping me understand, do I want to pursue that path or not? Or when I get in there, what kind of return on my investment of my time and my effort in that area? So again, it's kind of going back to how you have been taught to think about a career, which is looking at it and saying, I am more than my job and my role, and am I going to spend time exploring potential there?
Yeah, yeah, that's so right. And tell me, just to kind of wrap up the interview process, if you have any last sound bites that you would like to leave our audience.
I think the only thing I would like to share that we may not have talked about is of the economies that we are in right now, the future that we are looking at for leaders, employees, gig workers. It doesn't matter whoever is listening to this particular interview, is that you need to be really good at what I call code switching, right? Being to be a leader and a follower at the same time. The ability to explore a side gig at the same time. Being responsive to what's in front of you, but what's coming in the future. The ability to keep switching codes is going to be very central to the future of the organizations as well as the future of peers, because these are the people who will be adaptable, and these are the people who will be ready for whatever disruption might come their way. So focus on code switching.
Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful. It was such a pleasure talking to you, Tanvi, and I really, really appreciate your time and, sharing your views with us. And I just love how composed you've been throughout this interview. And, it's been an enriching and quite a learning experience for me personally. And if it is for me, for our audience also. So let's keep in touch, and you have a healthy and safe time ahead of you. Have a great
Thank you,
day.
and I wish the same to everybody at peopleHum, and I look seeing places that everybody will go there. All right, bye.
Yes, bye-bye.